Hey everyone, it's Clint. I'm going to try and do this video and not make it a drama video, but I don't know how to avoid that. Lately, there's been this discussion about printing your books at home. You crowdfund a comic book, take it home, and you print it yourself instead of going out to a professional printer to do this. So we're going to be talking about two different people that I know. I thought maybe I won't weigh in on this because I don't want to cause any problems or hurt any feelings. The truth is that I got into this to talk about exactly this, crowdfunding comics, printing comics, comic industry stuff. All of this is extremely relevant, and it made for a really interesting discussion all day long. I checked in and out of Twitter just to see what was going on, and tons of people were weighing in, but we're going to be talking about specifically two. One is Peter Simeti, and the second one is George Alexopoulos. I'm going to try and get through this without being boring or drag, so we'll get through it. All right, so it started off with this. Peter Simeti this morning said, just got some terrible news from our newsprint web press printer, and I'm going to have to scramble to find another one. This isn't the best way to start the day, but it is what it is. So he lost his printer. In response, George Alexopoulos said, you should buy a printer. All right, so this started off. I'm going to give you my thoughts, but I'm going to save them for the end. We're going to get through all this. All right, so the next one, George Alexopoulos retweeted Peter giving that bad news, and he commented. And you got to know, if you're not on Twitter, when you do the retweet thing, it kind of makes a different statement. I know you can pretend like it doesn't, but it does, because you're showing something that somebody's saying to your own followers as opposed to just commenting to where it is. There's definitely there's some undertone that's going on. All right, so George Alexopoulos retweeted first. There's going to be lots of retweets. Prepare yourself. All right, so George said, this serves as a good example of why it's good for any creator to consider buying their own print equipment. It's more work, but you have zero dependence on outside sources. If something goes wrong, all you have to do is apply some elbow grease. All right, sorry, one thing here. Peter Simeti I would not consider him a creator. I mean, he is a creator, but he's not just a creator. He's a publisher, and he publishes a lot of titles. He runs a publishing company that's been around for years. And so making your own book you definitely would approach it a little bit differently than publishing several titles. That's quite a big undertaking. All right, we'll get to the next one. Now, Peter Simeti's turn. He retweeted that statement from George, and he said, sure, I'll just launch a full-fledged web press printing production plant. How's that for alliteration? For about $2 million, complete with a trained team of technicians, print specialists, crew machinery, and supplies. Seems pretty easy to do. Why didn't I think about this before? Thanks, George. All right, so then all sorts of different opinions ensued, and lots of saltiness and lots of laughing and memes and all sorts of stuff. But there was also a lot of really interesting discussion that went on. All right, so George posted this a bit later, and he said, genuinely surprised by a handful of sarcastic reactions to me recommending another publisher to consider buying a printer to do some of his runs in-house. And then here are his three arguments that he heard. The first one is it costs too much. That could be the case. I mean, if you're buying an entire printer, and in Peter's case, like you buying an entire print facility, George isn't really suggesting that. He's suggesting buying a single digital printer, an in-home digital printer. I don't know, honestly, the model number or anything like that, or how much that would cost, but that's the argument. The second one is how silly to think outside the box. I got to call it like it is, George. That is a straw man argument. Nobody said how silly it is to think outside the box. And I would say that Alterna Comics, you could point out whatever you want, but saying that Alterna Comics doesn't think outside the box, that's just not accurate. I mean, they've gotten a lot of crap from shill media because of switching to newsprint and lowering their price point for comics. So that is, I just got to call it like it is. That's a straw man argument. All right, and then the last one is maybe that works for small fry, but not for big rollers. Well, yeah, so Alterna Comics does, I asked Peter about this, how many comics does Alterna Comics print? Even though they're a small publisher, how many books do they print in a single year? It is 200,000 books. That is a lot of books. That is exactly 100 times more books than I am printing with Downcast, which is just 2,000. That is mind-boggling with how many that is. I did the math. That would be like printing from home if you worked 365 days a week, or a year, I should say. You would be printing about 500 copies every single day, and that would include printing them, making sure you got all the paper, stapling them every single day, Saturday, Sunday, every single day in order to get that done. Maybe you could bump it up and do 1,000 a day, but you'd at least have to do 500. All right, we'll keep following this. So this is where things really they took a weird turn, and maybe it's drama. I don't know. We're going to just talk about it anyway. All right, so now the discussion got to, why is Peter so salty? And Doug Garrett said probably just stress. And then George Alexopoulos said might be EVS. Now, to this point, Ethan Van Sciver had absolutely nothing to do with the discussion. In fact, I think George actually has EVS blocked. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it literally has nothing to do with the conversation. Peter's been running his publishing company for, again, like 10 or 12 years or something like that. As far as I know, Ethan and Peter just do their own separate things. They might know each other, but I don't know. I doubt that they're colluding on especially this. I gotta suggest, like, there might be something else besides might be EVS. It might actually be that the man just lost his printing contract and he's forced to scramble and find a new printer, not knowing what the costs are going to be and how it's going to affect everything else, like timing and all sorts of other things that it could possibly be. Maybe it's that is a stressful experience, like Doug Garrett said, probably just stress. But also, to throw on top of it, the honestly kind of silly not kind of, I mean, I gotta call it how it is. It's a really silly suggestion to suggest that somebody running a publishing company that's publishing 200,000 books in a year just print them inside their home, as if running a publishing company wasn't intense enough. Adding that to it, it really is kind of ridiculous. I just gotta call it how it is. Feel free to disagree in the comments below. All right, so Peter retweeted. We're starting to get more conflict here. Maybe this is drama. I don't know. Here we go. All right, so Peter says, "Are you serious? My response to you about your pompous printing suggestion has nothing, all caps, to do with EVS. George, what is your damage, man?" And you've got everyone and their mother weighing in. And yeah, let's see here. So Peter does say, "At this point, I'm just done with it. If he thinks my strings are being pulled or I'm a mouthpiece for someone else," meaning EVS, "there's no point in saying anything more on the matter." And then George says, "I agree. We should both drop this. I'm sure we'll both have a good long careers without ever mentioning it again." Yeah, sometimes it's nice to just let it go. All right, so the end of the day, right? Bottom of the line, who's right about this? Few things. First, let's take a look. So George is saying that he can do prints from home that look just as good as professional prints, and that you would not be able to tell the difference. They're going to stand up to professional prints. Now, I can tell you, I have printed books from a digital printer. I did it, not comics, but I did my novels because they were print on demand and it didn't make sense to do large print runs. And so they were all digitally printed. I can absolutely tell the difference. Even in that format where it's just black and white pages, I can tell a difference between professional printing, especially on the covers, digital printing versus offset printing. For comics, I can tell you, I get sent comics from people all of the time. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not so great. And like I've got one, I think in the room right now somewhere. I won't show you, but I've got one that I know was printed at home and stapled at home because it doesn't look very good. Maybe George is going to prove me wrong here, and he's got the system down and he's going to print some really professional looking comic books, and I'm not going to be able to tell difference. From this picture, honestly, I have no idea. It comes down to the look and the feel, and you know, getting a closer look, but I can tell you just from this glance, George, if you're watching, the lettering is going off the pages in some points, and so the bleed and like the safe zone stuff lines need to be respected. So that would definitely be something I'd want to fix before you go to print. Beyond that, though, I just don't know. I am a backer of this campaign, and so I'm really eager to get it, and I will compare. But another point I want to make is, for me personally, and I did get brought into this because I am doing a smaller print run. I mean, it's bigger than the Mary Sue's print run, I'm guessing. I'm printing 2,000 books. So Luke on Twitter said this could actually be the perfect for a creator like Clint. That's me. He could get his printing done in-house in a few days and save time and money. Small printers may be too slow for Pete's volume, but anyone doing runs like from 1,000 to 3,000 could save thousands of dollars per book by not paying setup. I can tell you setup fees for offset printers, it's really not that expensive because you're printing so many books. Like 2,000 books is actually a decent sized print run. And so cost per book is not too bad, generally speaking. Downcast, honestly, most of the cost got added on to it because I just pimped that book out to make it better. It's also perfect bound and not stapled, and so that's another consideration to look at. All right, so let's see. I said, thankfully my print run is big enough to warrant professional offset printing. I can't justify $15 per book unless it's professional. That is another really big point with crowdfunding comic books. I would want to know up front, honestly, like what kind of quality I'm getting. If the book is going to be printed in newsprint, I would want to know that before I back it. If it's offset printing, digital printing, I mean, if you have small print runs, digital printing makes sense, but I still think that there's generally a difference between going out to a professional digital printer versus at in-home digital printer, unless you really have your stuff together. And again, I'm really happy to be proven wrong here. The other thing, though, is I seriously, I cannot charge $15 to $25 per book and give somebody a home printed book. It's got to be the best quality, especially because I want to compete with mainstream comics. I can't do that by making zines, essentially, at home. All right, so Luke responds, George has been saying he can get quality indistinguishable from the big print houses. We'll see when the Mary Sue delivers. And I responded, with all due respect, I have a hard time believing that, but I did back the book, so I'm eager to take a look. That is true. Yes, I stand by every one of those words. All right. So I did go over my own printing because Luke was pretty insistent that I give it a try. I'm not going to. I have no desire to. I could technically do the entire book myself. I could do the art, the lettering, the coloring, the writing, the printing. I could do that all myself and save more money, but I really shouldn't. And I think this is important, is to know where my strengths are. I'm a very good writer, and I am, I think, a very good marketer and getting the thing out there, and I can do the crowdfunding. That works. Those are my strong points. I'm not a very good artist. I'd love to get better, but right now I'm not at a professional level artist. I'm not a professional colorer or letterer or printer. And so I think it's smart of me to get other people that have strengths in those areas and have them, make the book the best it can possibly be. All right. So when I get all those books, I'm really interested to see what 2,000 books looks like and how long it's going to take me to box them all up and ship them out to all of you backers. That's going to be a massive undertaking, and comparing that to, adding on the printing process and buying a printer and all this kind of stuff on top of it, I got to call it like it is. I think it's complete nonsense to suggest it at that kind of level. 2,000 copies, let alone 200,000 copies. But I want to know what you have to say about all of this. Where did you see the most salt coming from this whole exchange? Do you have a nuanced opinion that has nothing to do with anything? Let me know in the comments below for sure. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you would like to join my mailing list for my next comic book launch, crowdfunded professional comic book, you can go to the link in the description below and join my mailing list, and I will see you next time.